who face eternity easily forget what a lifetime means, what an ending means.
You know it doesn't have to be this way.
No, Kunavang, it does. They need me.
Welcome to End of Dragons Daily 86. Today I was going to talk a lot more about the Elite Specialization. There's been a lot of really fun response and feedback. However, the devs also dropped news about the Legendary Armory, and they dropped news about the Marionette, which I haven't really covered. So we're going to look at the Armory, just some response, just some feedback from you guys, your initial takes on what's going on there. It's not necessarily an End of Dragons feature. Obviously, it's coming within a week, but it will dramatically affect how we feel through End of Dragons, especially if End of Dragons, as they've announced, is adding a Generation 3 of Legendaries, all with their own Cantha-specific acquisition processes and so on. So that's the main topic. I do want to stop, though. On Reddit the other day, something very cool appeared, and it was the results of a competition I ran back when Super Adventure Box was going on. Remember I said, hey guys, Shaman actually managed to data mine information about all the zones that weren't added. We know where the devs were going with World 3 and 4 because of the flavor text that we've got here and the name of the maps. So why doesn't someone fill in the full world map, take all the clouds away, and give us a cool sense of what if the whole thing had been added? Well, somebody's done it. That's Chaotic Scares, who has won their gems now. I sent them the message shortly before shooting the video. And what a brilliant job that they've done here. I mean, you guys should pause the video and seriously zoom in and see all the fantastic little details. Like right at the end, under the keep, there seems to be some kind of crazy glitched area, which I think is a cool idea given the glitched weapons and some of those other themes that have been going on with the story. I think it kind of does make sense that the story would end up going to that. Would we be going there after the keep? I'm not too sure. But basically all the different levels and zones that we'd thought about there, you know, like there's the, what was it called? The crypt or something right before the keep that you can see. All the details of maybe the underwater stuff. I love that boat on a pillar deep in an underground cave surrounded by water. Just really, really cool and well fitting to the existing art style. I'm very, very impressed. So hopefully I'll run some more competitions like that as well, you know, as we go forward. If other people have ideas for fan art. The new Elite Specialization teaser that came out has actually triggered so much art I've noticed in the community, some of which I want to show you on the next part, so hang on for that. Right, let's move in and talk a little bit about the Armory. First comment here is from Viper07, who's talking about the bubbles thing. So I had a ton of messages around this topic. Let's be clear. I pointed out, I read the new lore about Bolt, and it said Bolt is like themed or made after a dragon whose name Tyria is yet to learn. And I said, well, that's weird because that's clearly a Bubbles reference, but we're probably going to learn its name in End of Dragon, so isn't this going to become outdated? Also, Bolt is lightning-y, so shouldn't it be Kraukratoric? So does that mean that Bubbles now is lightning-y too because it took Kraukratoric's influence? But then that doesn't really work because Bolt is presumably like an ancient weapon, and the Deep Sea Dragon would have only recently acquired these characteristics. And even just the idea, by the way, I never mentioned this in the previous video, but the idea that somehow we've got this built artifact, somebody forged it, somebody made it, and yet Tyria doesn't even know the name of the thing that it's forged after. That alone is kind of weird. So that's what I said. I thought it was a Deep Sea Dragon reference. But many of you guys responded. That's not what Viper's saying here, but many of you simply said, well, WP, it doesn't have to be about an Elder Dragon. And I think you're all totally right. That completely escaped me. But, you know, yeah, Tyria is a world filled with dragons. There's Glint and Kunavang and the Salt Sprays and Christ knows what else going on in Cantha, the Empire of the Dragon. So maybe, yeah, we are just talking about something more akin to maybe the Shatterer. Maybe it is still an Elder Dragon. It's just Kraukratoric's predecessor. And this actually could be a hint about whatever we do when we learn more about Mother. You know, it could be about those much bigger topics further down the line. And in fact, they're being much more forward-thinking than I realize. I'm accusing them of maybe not being forward-thinking at all, but there's actually something much more fun that they've got happening here. So yeah, I really do think that you guys are right. It's probably just talking about another regular dragon or perhaps a previous cycle Elder Dragon. But Viper has a really fun little extra take here. Let's put the comment on screen now. Who says, so Bolt is an impression of Bubbles, maybe? It says a dragon whose name Tyria has yet to learn. That implies Bubbles is a worm-style dragon, because they look worm-like across it. It may also imply that Bubbles has multiple heads, as there are 4 dragons on Bolt. Now, it's funny because I actually do suddenly think it's a little bit more Bubbles related. I really like this comment because I've always imagined the deep sea dragon as having multiple heads. I think it's because of that Hydra attacking Lion's Arch concept art from around Heart of Thorns that is just always stuck out to me. In truth, the multiple heads thing isn't new. We already had that with Zaitan. I know many people forget it, and Zaitan wasn't on screen for very long, and so on. But we kind of already did it. I mean, even in a way, I would say Morgemoth kind of had the multiple heads feel going on, if you really play into the idea that it was the whole jungle and all the vines and, you know, the Venus flytraps and so on. You know, maybe you could consider other heads. So anyway, if the devs have kind of done it before, will they do it again with the deep sea dragon is the question. I think they might. But overall, maybe this sword isn't talking about the Deep Sea Dragon at all. It's a double bluff. And by the way, if it's not talking about the Deep Sea Dragon, I'm 100% confident that the studio is knowingly doing that. They're knowingly, like, tricking us. And that's probably precisely why that is the piece of lore they gave on the blog post, because it has got this extra layer to it. Next, we've got Mylen, who says, I won't lie. Now, again, much of the response to the Legendary Armory, as every time they've power crept legendaries, and I mean in terms of like quality of life and access and stuff, there's always been a rapturous applause from the community. I can't fight that. I don't agree with it. I've never agreed with it. It's not Guild Wars to me. Guild Wars isn't about epic grind to unlock mechanical, substantial quality of life rewards. It's about grinding for cosmetics. But that's the world we're in, and most people have taken this really, really well. However, I do find a few kindred spirits out there in the comments, and people with concerns that I think will become more and more apparent as time goes forward. So let's run through two of them. That's all I got. First, we have Mylan, who said, I won't lie, this update just kind of discourages me from playing and wanting to get legendaries. And you said it yourself, why? If I want to try something new, it's time consuming and you have to put together a whole new set to do it. Swapping around is not easy or convenient. Yeah, legendaries are the answer to that. But legendaries are a lot of grinds that's just not a fun or an interesting grind. There's no real sense of progression or accomplishment with a legendary because 95% of a legendary is just pay a lot of gold. I've finished most of what's needed for Aurora except for like 2 or 3 achievements, and that was fun, but I've never finished those last 3 because after that I don't get a reward. I get an, alright, now spend 1,600 gold to get your reward. It doesn't feel like accomplishing or earning something when the only main gate is a long tedious grind that shares its currency with everything else in the game. So yeah, I do want to remind people it's okay to not like going for legendaries. There is kind of a thing where a lot of people like me and a lot of long-term established veterans, they're all freaking out and they're all excited because they've got all the gear and they're all pretty biased and they're not very objective. They just want you to be excited about the game and the franchise so that you'll buy copies of the expansion. But the truth is, I think the majority of the player base don't have legendaries, and the way that legendary acquisition is structured in Guild Wars 2 is it's heavily reliant on this gold thing, and it does put people off. So I really don't like this whole upper class, lower class thing that's going on with the game. And you can say to me, well, WP, only a tiny proportion of players have legendaries. That actually makes the situation even worse to me, that an exclusive, like, section of the community is going to be getting these big perks. What I really, really want to see the devs do going forward through the end of Dragon's Era and beyond is finding a way to bring the casual and the mid-gore players up to a point where they get some of this stat swap functionality. This commenter says that legendaries are the answer to that. No. Legendaries should be an answer to that. They get some of this variance, and that benefits everyone. That means that we can have a more captivating, interesting game built around buildcraft, where people are more readily willing to swap their builds and participate in hard, difficult endgame content and stuff like that, because they actually have access to multiple things. The current processes, like stat swapping in the Mystic Forge, is actually very easy and very cheap, but it's not convenient. The current processes they've got could be better. I actually see all the customize user interface that they added over the recent few years as really, really powerful, and I want to see more ascended and lower gear lean into that. I don't think we should have to go to legendary for all of this stuff. I really don't, as much as we can enjoy these updates. Next as well, we have Anthony, who says, it always seemed like a weird one to me that ArenaNet's idea of end game progression for PvE is playing the game a lot, getting legendaries, in order to play the game less. No need to get different stat trinkets once you have the legendary trinket, and this just exacerbates. I can't think of another MMO that takes that approach. They don't, because it's a really silly, stupid approach. It's short-term thinking. It's one of these things that makes me think, oh, well, they clearly don't care about Guild Wars 2. They're just going to Guild Wars 3. They want to load as much value on this stuff as possible. And it doesn't matter that this is essentially a system of entropy, that ultimately players, you know, End of Dragons is going to come out, guys, with this Armory. And any of us who are veteran established players that have a wide band of legendaries on our character, we don't have to do anything for any of the tangible rewards. Guild Wars 2 is a game that doesn't do like vertical progression. It has to do horizontal progression. It has to make new item attribute combinations interesting. It has to make new runes interesting. It has to make new sigils interesting. That's really its space to play around in. And ArenaNet, short-sightedly, have killed all of that opportunity too now. So you're not getting vertical progression in this game, and once you have legendaries, all that other stuff doesn't matter because you're going to log into End of Dragons and you're instantly going to bypass all the meta events that they want you to do, all the currencies that they want you to acquire, all the fun, unique, specific adventures. It's all immediately unlocked. It's grotesque. It's ridiculous. And again, it's just like a sign to me that they want to move on. You know, Colin comes back, Grouch comes back, there's this sense, oh, it's going to be a new era, we're going a long time with the whole DirectX 12 thing. And yet one of the first things we see happening is another system of ultimate entropy and fallout. I really, really think, as a fundamental idea, I loathe the Armory. It's a betrayal of this game, this franchise's fundamental principles about not having to grind for access to stuff. It's a betrayal of the game's principles to a certain degree in terms of like visual creep and stuff. All the people running around with legendaries all the time now. You think visual noise is bad? Well, wait till you see after this update. And it's even bad just in terms of like long-term health and opportunities for people to do things. Yeah, play the game a lot so you don't have to log in anymore. Guild Wars 2 in a nutshell, right? All right, moving on. Let's get to the next comment. I know I will have just incensed a ton of you guys. You want to be excited because, you know, short-term efficiency and gains for you and your character and your account is all that really matters to you. But in terms of broader game analysis, I really think there's some danger to it. I don't want to take people's excitement away from them. If they feel like it's valid, that this is a great update, then that's very, very cool. I'm not trying to stomp all over that. Next, Ethan says, WP, I think it may be way easier than you are thinking to get into that 0.008%. Just make any single piece of legendary armor that you already own. Yeah, I didn't think about this. That's actually crazy to me now. On the previous part, I was saying, wow, that's a really, really high proportion for how obscure and crazy the idea is getting like 5 incinerators or whatever. But yeah, surely you will hit the 0.008% if you just have like 2 light chest pieces. And suddenly, the number seems really low to me. Because, you know, maybe this is a failing of the Armory to a certain degree. I was hoping that with the Armory, I would have incentive to not just get the PvE legendary armor, but to get the PvP stuff. Like, I've been spending all my currency on minis all these years, but I'm about to finish that progression. So once I've finished all those minis, it would be really cool if then it's like, okay, now go get all the legendary armor, and the Armory actually builds into that. And for World vs. World as well, I just finished getting all the skins. I now have I basically have precursor legendary armor in World vs. World. And I've got this question in my mind, do you want to take the next step? It would be another, like, 12 weeks or something, but you could take the next step and get that armor, and I'm like on the cusp of it, and I want reasons to play the game. I like that about the Armory, giving people a sense of purpose and like reinvigorating the rewards that are already there. That's what the Armory's there to do, right? And now actually it's like, oh, hold on, the way they've described it, none of that's real. That doesn't matter. It's get either or. Either the PvE stuff, and then it automatically unlocks for all the other stuff, or the PvP in reverse, or the World vs. World in reverse. And that's crazy to me. I mean, there's an argument to be made that the PvP and the World vs. World sets should have unique skins, and maybe the devs can do that in the future, and then they can become their own separate parts of the Armory. But it looks like for the short term, there's no reason to do that. And only 0.008% of people ever had the idea. I mean, I'm on the cusp of doing it, even if the Armory wasn't being added. But, you know, that's just because of my obsession with light armor, I suppose. What do you guys think? Am I missing something on that one? Phoenix Rising says, I assume the devs currently struggling with Aurora, Vision, Coalescence, because their effects don't just rely on the trinkets itself, and thus the one slot, but on the amount of equipped legendary trinkets. The game would then have to differentiate between toggling off Conflux and toggling off Coalescence. The latter one would stage down the effect of Vision and Aurora to the second stage. At least I would hope that's the way they'd implement it, so you can actually get all 3 stages at will. While the former one wouldn't stage them down and instead toggle off the Conflux effect. It's unfortunately not as simple as toggle off the effect effect in Trinket Slot X. I'm afraid, especially as it interfaces with inventory code, which ArenaNet seemed to fear in the past. Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, I never said any of this out loud on the previous video, but I think that's what's running through all of our minds. The thing with the legendary trinkets is it's not just an effect. It's not just like an infusion. They did go above and beyond. They added this item combo thing, and that's probably very complicated to figure out. For what it's worth, what I'm really hoping is once they do figure that out and allow these things to be toggled off, that like the new amulet that we're getting for the season replay, I'm hoping that that plays into the whole thing again. I'm hoping we can tier up the orbs with the lightning. I actually think personally that it gets uglier the more legendaries you equip. So if they keep going, maybe they can fix that and it will start looking cool again afterwards or something. And yeah, people should be able to toggle those on or off. It is going to be interesting though, because I think there is going to be a period of time next week where the amount of those orbs from Aurora and Vision and stuff that we see is going to go way, way, way up. Because they'll be there in the Armory on everyone's character. And they can't toggle them off. And you've got to consider that we're in the middle of a massive Living World replay. You know, we're in Season 3 right now. So people aren't just making progress for the new Legendary, this amulet that's coming in. But anyone who missed Aurora before, they're doing that right now. They can double up. When they're in Ember Bay, as it is this week, they're doubling up on that value. When they get to Draconis Mons, the big grind one, they can double up. And so I think we're going to see a lot of these. And people will be desperate for that toggle off. Bronze Ox says, I've read a few comments and I haven't seen this expressed yet. It seems to me that the fact that they don't have a special tab or legendary UI or something where you can see all of your legendaries together makes it more likely that they are considering player housing for Cantha. A lot of people are disappointed. See, this is End of Dragon's Daily, guys. Are disappointed that the Legendary Armory is just in an invisible quality of life function inside the equipment UI. And they'll be ecstatic to put all of their legendaries on display in their player home in Cantha. Yeah, I actually am completely in agreement with you here. The fact that it doesn't have more of a home would totally make sense if they're also saying, well, look, we're doing player housing, and we have item frames, and we have, you know, weapon racks, and we have stuff like that, and we've got this cool idea of a physical armory that we can actually explore and we can share with our friends and stuff. That is going to be such a huge thing for reward incentive and excitement for the player base if we can actually display our gear that we're not currently equipped. Tying that with legendaries, having a real armory, that all makes a ton of sense. That would mean they could be a little bit lighter on it now, and it will be expanded on massively with Cantha. And you know what as well? We'll probably know whether there is player housing by the end of the month. This big stream, I would expect to reveal playable Tengu, housing, fishing, any kind of boat, whatever the features are that they've gone with. And however many features they've gone with, it will be there, and we'll know, you know, by the end of the month. Now, that's really exciting, because the month is slowly marching along with the 8th already. And finally, just a quick little message here that, again, I feel a kindred spirit in is Jacob K. Finally, I get to know more the lore of Sharur. Hell yeah! You know, I mentioned the Binding of Ipos before, but you guys know me. I'm a sucker for ore. I'm a sucker for the Risen. I'm a sucker for the gods. And that hammer, I don't even own that hammer. That hammer is most captivating to me because of its theme and its idea of what the hell it's all about. So learning a little bit more there is going to be brilliant. I also kind of want to learn a bit more about the HMS Divinity too. I feel like you could get a good story on that as well. So yeah, many of you guys said, WP, I want to see all the lore out in a video. It's on my mind, certainly, especially if it's not like rewatchable. But you never know. So I'm playing that one by ear. You guys could get that. It would be pretty fun. Even if it's just me reading from Wiki. Because, for example, Shara here, I don't have the hammer. But I would love to read you that lore. So maybe we just pluck it from the internet. So we'll see. Anyway, there you have it, guys. Next time, I want to talk a lot more about the Elite Specialization. Something very cool happened on Twitter. Somebody showed me some fan art inspired from a video that they watched. I had another big tweet about the Guild Wars 2 world map art as well. This one here. Which inspired a good amount of discussion. Don't forget that there is a link to my Twitter down in the description. I basically never plug it, but I really should. So if you guys want to click that, get some insights. I was also talking about the Euros a little bit yesterday. Couldn't help myself. We're in the finals. So thank you all. Give me any of your thoughts down below, and I'll see you tomorrow. See, look, we're actually getting daily again here. Take care, guys.